Today is the 16th of July 2013, and I'd like to take up a verse from the Mumon Khan as our starting point for this talk. The Mumon Khan is one of the collections of koans that are part of the Zen curriculum, and the verse to each koan is written by Master Mumon. His Chinese name is Wu Men, and here it is. Here's the verse. Hundreds of flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer and snow in winter. If your mind is not clouded with unnecessary things, no season is too much for you. The verse seemed like a good one for us in the depths of winter. Today was a beautiful day, but we've had some pretty cold, wet weather lately. And can we appreciate that? Can we appreciate it without grumbling, either audibly or to ourselves? In Japanese culture, there's at least historically, though probably blunted somewhat these days by urban living, there's this really strong tradition of appreciating the seasons. This is expressed through poetry, through haiku, but also in other ways by having a flower arrangement or a scroll in the alcove of the house that is in tune with the seasons, wearing clothing that harmonizes with the seasons, to be able to appreciate all the little changes that occur, and also the things which become particularly special, like in this verse, the flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer. And here it says snow in winter. Up here we don't get snow except once last year for 5 seconds. But to be able to appreciate what we do receive. Sun in winter is particularly beautiful, to be able to sit with the sun on one's back on a cold day. Dogs and cats know this very well. Of course, this verse has more to it than just the literal meaning. When Mumon talks here about seasons, he's talking about all different kinds of changes that we go through. Loss, birth, newness of different kinds, pressure that we can be under in different ways at work, but also you could include here really any of the states we pass through: boredom, dullness, confusion, anxiety, discouragement, excitement. If your mind is not clouded with unnecessary things, no season is too much for you. Often we don't even allow ourselves to really experience what's going on, because we jump so quickly to our opinions about what's happening, our thoughts. In one of his books, John Kabat-Zinn suggests a little exercise, which is just to say to ourselves, to remind ourselves from time to time, this is it. This is it. Whatever we are experiencing, this is it. He says, see if there is anything at all that it cannot be applied to. Remind yourself that acceptance of the present moment has nothing to do with resignation in the face of what is happening. It simply means a clear acknowledgement that what is happening is happening. In fact, we can't really act without this basic awareness. He also, in this little chapter on this, is that describes a New Yorker cartoon which I remember seeing and smiling about, which is of two Zen monks in robes, shaved heads, and one's young and fresh-faced, and the other one is really old and wrinkly, like a prune. And the young one is kind of looking quizzically at the older one, and then the caption underneath says, "Nothing happens next. This is it." And Kabat-Zinn comments on this. He says, "It's true. Ordinarily, when we undertake something, it is only natural to expect a desirable outcome for our efforts. We want to see results, even if it is only a pleasant feeling. The sole exception I could think of is meditation. Meditation is the only intentional, systematic human activity which at bottom is not trying to improve yourself or get anywhere else, but simply to realize where you are already. Perhaps its value lies precisely in this. Maybe we all need to do one thing in our lives simply for its own sake. It doesn't matter what practice we're doing, whether it's a breath or koan or shikantaza. It's necessary to do it just for its own sake. Just to be fully engaged with this present breath. Not thinking about how some other breath is going to be, some other moment. He goes on to say that you'd be more accurate to call meditation being rather than doing. He says, when we understand that this is it allows us to let go of the past and the future and wake up to what we are now, in this moment. But hearing this, you might very well be asking yourself, well, what is the point? Surely I do come along with wanting to get something out of this practice. It might be to relax or to experience deeper states, to become a better person. Or we heard on the workshop on Saturday, many people talk about wanting to work with very painful things that come up, suffering. We find some freedom from old habits. And actually all of these are very valid reasons for taking up a meditation practice. But they can become problematic if we expect that everything's going to change just because we're meditating now. Actually, sometimes when you start to do a meditation practice, it feels like your mind is worse than before. And this comes about because you're now beginning to pay attention to it. And often things do have to get worse before they can get better. The other danger if we hold tightly to the reasons for what we want to get out of the practice is that we may always be kind of taking the lid off the pot to see how it's going. And it's easy to get discouraged if we're always looking for signs of progress. I've mentioned before that some very good advice that Alan Wallace was given by his teacher when he was puzzling about this, saying, surely I'm striving for awakening. Surely that's a necessary thing. And his teacher told him, sure, let that aspiration get you onto the mat to do the practice. But once you're on that mat and doing the practice, then forget about that and just do the practice. Very, very good advice. In other words, not to turn one's aspiration, which is really a dynamic thing, a changing thing, into a fixed idea. John Kabat-Zinn says a little later, when we let go of wanting something else to happen in this moment, we are taking a profound step toward being able to encounter what is here now. If we hope to go anywhere or develop ourselves in any way, we can only step from where we are standing. If we don't really know where we are standing, a knowing that comes from directly from cultivation of mindfulness, we may only go in circles for all our efforts and expectations. So in meditation practice, the best way to get somewhere is to let go of trying to get anywhere at all. We work really by indirection in our practice, not confronting head on our thoughts and feelings, but returning positively to something. And for most people, this the breath. This process which happens so beautifully without our conscious involvement. It happens when we're asleep, when we're doing some complicated activity or talking, we're breathing. This breath is a kind of a bridge between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. Very, very often we can get fixated on what is wrong and lose sight of the thusness of this moment. It's where this reminder, just saying to ourselves sometimes, this is it. Actually, we don't have anything else but this to work with. Ajahn Brahm is a Western-born Thai tradition monk, tells a really good story about this tendency to see, always to pick out from any experience what is wrong. He tells about when they first started building their monastery in Perth in Western Australia, and they got the land, but they were very, very short of money. They couldn't afford to hire labourers, and so they had to learn to build themselves. And one of the things he had to learn was how to lay bricks. And he said it was much harder than it looked, because you'd get it, put the mortar on and try and get the brick straight, and it would go up on one side and down on the other, and you'd have to nudge it back into position. And he said that being a monk, he had a lot of time on his hands, and So he would just take his time and try and get every single brick level, and eventually, going along like this, he finished this wall. But then when he finally stood back to admire it, he noticed that there were two bricks that were really bad. They were really crooked, on an angle, and they looked terrible. And he said they spoiled the whole wall, they ruined it. But it was too late. The cement had already solidified, and the only way he would have been able to fix this wall would be by knocking part of it down and building it again. And that's what he wanted to do, but he was told no, there was many other things they had to do, and he should just leave it. But then he said that when he'd take visitors around the monastery, whenever he went past this wall, he would cringe. He hated it because he would see those two crooked bricks. Then he tells how at a certain point, some months after he'd finished making the wall, he was walking a visitor around, showing him around, and the visitor said, "That's a nice wall." And then Ajahn Brahm said, "No, what are you talking about? Can't you see those two bad bricks that spoil the whole wall?" And then the guy said, yes, I can see those two bad bricks, but I can also see the 998 good bricks as well. And he relates, "I was stunned. For the first time in over 3 months, I could see other bricks in that wall apart from the two mistakes. Above, below, to the left and to the right of the bad bricks, good bricks, perfect bricks. Moreover, the perfect bricks were many, many more than the two bad bricks. Before, my eyes would focus exclusively on my two mistakes. I was blind to everything else. That was why I couldn't bear looking at that wall or having others see it. That was why I wanted to destroy it. But now that I could see the good bricks, the wall didn't look so bad after all. It was, as the visitor had said, a nice brick wall. It's still there now, 20 years later, but I have forgotten exactly where those bad bricks are. I literally cannot see those mistakes anymore." There are so many situations in which we do this. We fixate on what's wrong, and it can affect our relationships with people. When we fixate on people's imperfections, and also just our relationship to our work, to ourselves. There are probably many reasons for this, but we do live in a culture of dissatisfaction, where we're constantly being encouraged to go for something that's new or improved or 20% more, better. And we're also live in a culture in which we're often overstimulated, wanting something to happen. And a society in which growth and progress and advancement are considered to be the norm. When Mumon talks about our mind not being clouded with unnecessary things, he's talking about letting go of our thoughts about progress, attainment. Instead of getting caught up in those concepts, to just become so involved in this that our ideas about the process dissolve. There's a story from the Taoist sage, or passage from the Taoist sage Chuang-Tzu. He says, "In the age when life on earth was full, no one paid any special attention to worthy men, nor did they single out the man of ability. Rulers were simply the highest branches on the trees, and the people were like deer in the woods. They were honest and righteous without realizing that they were doing their duty. They loved each other and did not know this was love of neighbor. They deceived no one, yet did not know they were men to be trusted. They were reliable and did not know that this was good faith. They lived freely together, giving and taking, and did not know they were generous. For this reason, their deeds have not been narrated. They made no history." There was probably actually never a time when this was the case, but he's using this idea of a kind of golden age here as a rhetorical device to point out ordinariness, to be able to live in a way that is quite unaffected, where we're just being honest. We're not thinking, I'm an honest person. We're just being generous, not thinking, I'm a generous person. There's another Zen story in which a master had an official, a government official as a student, and at a certain point this official was appointed to a position, and the teacher asked him, "Well, how are you going to rule?" And the official said, "I will rule with wisdom and compassion." And then his teacher said, "Oh, well, I pity your poor subjects if that's the case." The case that this particular verse refers to is called "Ordinary Mind is the Way," and goes like this. Joshu asked Nansen, "What is the way?" Nansen answered, "Ordinary mind is the way." Joshu asked, "Shall I try to seek after it?" "If you try to seek after it, you go away from it," answered Nansen. Joshu said, "If I do not try for it, how can I know the way?" Nansen said, "The way is not a matter of knowing or not knowing. Knowing is illusion, not knowing is blankness. If you attain to this way of no doubt, it is as boundless as vast space. So how can there be right or wrong in the way?" At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. This is one of the dilemmas we face. If we're not to seek after the way, if it really is just what's right here in front of us, then how do we do that? How do we seek the way without seeking? Nansen says the way is not a matter of knowing or not knowing. Knowing is illusion. Not knowing is blankness. The problem with knowing, what makes it illusion, is that it is dualistic. There's a knower and a known in knowing. But then to just reject knowing is also a mistake, because that's just ignorance, blankness. The secret really is to join with the practice, to become the breath, to become the koan, to just completely be absorbed in this moment. If you attain this way of no doubt, it is as boundless as vast space. In the commentary, Joshu says, questioned by Joshu, So Mumon says, questioned by Joshu, Nansen, like melting ice and disintegrating tile, dissolved and could not offer a plausible explanation. This is typical sort of praise by slander by Mumon. But then he says something that's very to the point. Even though Joshu has come to a realization, he must delve into it for another 30 years before he can understand it fully. This ordinary mind, this right here is unfathomable. We might get a glimpse of the nature of this ordinary mind, and yet we'll need to delve into it for another 30 years to truly live out of that simplicity, that immediacy. It takes effort to realize this ordinary mind because of the momentum of our habit forces. It's like if you wanted to stay still in a very swiftly flowing river. You have to work at that. You have to really tread water, put a lot of energy into it just to stay in one place. Hundreds of flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, the cool breeze in summer, and snow in winter. If your mind is not clouded with unnecessary things, no season is too much for you. We'll stop here and cite the 4 vows.